The weather that day was less than ideal. Something on the radio mentioned a storm warning, but Alex didn't pay it much attention, a decision he would later regret. The trees outside were bending under the force of the wind as if they were about to be uprooted. Gusts of wind kicked up clouds of dust, whipped the grass, and sent trash scattering along the road. Inside the car, Alex felt quite comfortable. The warmth and coziness reliably shielded him from the chaos raging outside. At first, he watched the unfolding spectacle with some curiosity, but soon realized the dangerous consequences the storm could bring. Anxiety washed over him. What if a tree fell directly on the car? Rescue workers would hardly be able to respond quickly in this weather, since most people prefer to stay indoors. The usually busy highway was completely deserted. Alex had seen the last car about 20 minutes ago. Nevertheless, home was no more than 6 miles away and he pressed on. Suddenly, there was a deafening crack and Alex slammed on the brakes. A huge tree lay across the road ahead, its sprawling branches blocking half the lane. Despite the respectable distance to the obstacle, he was in no rush to get closer. Fear of nature's fury overwhelmed him, and he decided to pause to calm down. The spot he had stopped at seemed perfect. The car was parked in a small dip, where the wind was noticeably weaker than in the open. Alex took a deep breath, looked around, and noted that even the car doors could be opened without the risk of them being torn off. He felt safe inside the car, but just as he restarted the engine and was about to move, something caught his attention. There was something moving on the shoulder of the road, among the grass. Alex craned his neck to get a better look, but the dim light and swaying grass made it hard to make out what it was. He made up his mind and got out of the car. The icy wind cut through him, but he pushed through the cold and headed toward the spot where he had seen the movement. Peering under the bushes, he discovered a cat with its head stuck in a narrow tin can. The tall can was lodged on the animal down to its shoulders, making it impossible to remove. The cat desperately shook its head, trying to get rid of its prison, but to no avail. Alex cautiously approached the animal. Hearing footsteps through the noise of the wind, the cat froze warily. When the man took another step, the frightened animal darted away, but unable to see the road ahead, the can slammed directly into a stone. The impact made the cat sit back on its hind legs and whine loudly. The sight, strangely enough, struck Alex as amusing, and he chuckled involuntarily. However, a moment later, he imagined himself in the poor creature's place, and his smile vanished instantly. The man pulled his hands out of his pockets, which were already starting to freeze, and reached out to the cat. But the frightened creature jumped again and, slipping between the stones, ran a few yards further away. "Hey!" Alex called out. "You'll starve to death or get hit by a car. Let me help." He took another step, but the cat backed away again. At that moment, the first raindrops began to fall from the low, dark clouds. Ice mixed with water crept down Alex's collar, making him wince. Despite all the discomfort, the man was determined not to abandon the poor animal and try to help it. Taking a couple of quick steps, Alex caught up with the cat and grabbed it firmly by the scruff of its neck. But attempts to remove the can from the animal's head were unsuccessful. His frozen fingers began to tremble. Giving up, he got back into the car and placed the cat on the passenger seat. Alex slammed the door shut, turned on the ignition, but immediately heard a menacing hiss and a low, drawn-out wail coming from the can on the cat's head. He blew hard on his fingers to warm them up and restore feeling, then carefully reached for the animal. Trying not to scare it, Alex gently twisted the can and finally freed the cat. As soon as the can was removed, the cat jerked abruptly, hissed shrilly, and tried to swipe at Alex with its paw. The man quickly pulled his hands away. The animal, still hissing, glared at the can, as if it were to blame for all its troubles. Alex hid the can in the car's door pocket, and only then did the cat fall silent for a moment. But the silence didn't last long. The next second, the beast jumped on the seat, scurried around the car in a panic, then cowered in a corner on the dashboard, away from the driver, and began to look around warily. It was obvious that this was the first time it had been in a car. Alex wondered how the animal had even ended up here, on this deserted highway. The nearest town was several miles away. Had the cat come all the way here from the city with a can on its head? Or had someone simply driven it out here and abandoned it? This idea seemed implausible to Alex. The cat looked awful. Dirty, matted fur, tear-stained streaks in the corners of its eyes, trash on its tail. The animal's reaction to any human movement was so extreme that it was clear that it hadn't interacted with people for a long time, if ever. When Alex reached out for the animal, it set off a new wave of hysteria. The cat hissed so loudly that it seemed to deafen him. Alex, who had heard loud cat cries before, was surprised by such a piercing hiss. "Easy, easy," he tried to reassure the beast, but only made the situation worse. The cat wailed even louder, its panicked gaze making Alex feel sorry for the animal. He wasn't going to tame it by force. Moreover, he wouldn't even have noticed the cat if it hadn't been for the tree that had fallen on the road. The idea of taking the cat into town to find someone to take it in seemed sensible. But every time Alex tried to calm the animal down, his efforts ended in failure. At one point, when he was getting comfortable, he triggered a new reaction from the cat, who leaped over the back of the passenger seat and hid behind the headrest of the back seat. Sighing heavily, Alex decided that there was no point in tormenting the animal if it was so against being helped. He opened the back door and said, "Go if you want to." However, despite the offer of freedom, the cat retreated, hiding behind the seat. As soon as the man returned to his seat, the animal's curiosity got the better of it. It cautiously poked its head out, began to sniff the air, and looked around at the world outside. The freezing weather, with the trees bending in the wind, didn't scare it, but it clearly didn't want to stay outside either. "No, this won't do," Alex frowned. "Either you get out or you come with me. I'm not going to wait here until the weather clears up." The cat didn't react, only gave the man a disapproving look. After counting to 10 slowly, Alex realized that the cat wasn't going to leave, so he slammed the door shut. The animal flinched, hissed, but this time didn't wail. After making sure that the cat had calmed down, the man started the engine. The car started up, carefully drove around the fallen tree, and was soon back on the highway where the wind was raging. Alex felt a slight unease. The city was only a few miles away, and he hoped that he would be able to find shelter from the elements among the high-rise buildings. On the way, the cat was surprisingly quiet. Alex glanced back several times to make sure everything was okay. The animal, clinging to the seat with its claws, trying to keep from being shaken, watched the scenery outside with wide eyes. The sight brought a slight smile to Alex's face. He thought that perhaps their meeting was not accidental. Not knowing what to do with the cat, Alex couldn't come to a decision for a long time. In such gloomy and unpleasant weather, wandering around visiting friends, trying to find someone to take the animal in, seemed like an unappealing occupation. So he decided to keep the cat in his apartment, at least for the first time. However, another problem arose: how to pick up a wild beast and carry it to the entrance of the building. The cat would instantly attack as soon as Alex tried to reach out. Then the man remembered that his sister had once bought a carrier for her cat. Without delay, he dialed her number. "Are you home yet? Are you okay?" his sister asked in surprise. Alex explained that his business trip, which was supposed to last 2 more days, had ended early because he had completed the task faster. He didn't want to stay in a strange city, so he decided to come home. After reassuring his sister that everything was fine with him and his work, he told her the story of how he had met the wild cat. His sister agreed to lend him the carrier, and her house happened to be on Alex's way. After picking up the carrier and a small bag of food, he went home. After meticulously preparing the carrier, Alex sprinkled some food inside, placed it on the seat of the car, and began to wait. The cat, who had been giving the man wary glances, twitched its nose, catching the smell of food. Alex wisely hid behind the front seat, trying not to scare the animal. The cat, noticeably relaxing, cautiously stretched its nose towards the carrier, then took the first hesitant step forward. The food, carefully scattered to the very end of the carrier, lured it further and further in. Finally, when its hind legs were also inside, Alex slammed the door shut, instantly, locking the latch. The cat hissed deafeningly, wailed and began to growl, but the man remained unfazed. Retreating to a safe distance, he breathed a sigh of relief and exclaimed, "I finally caught that wild, stubborn thing." On the way home, Alex made another stop. He needed to stop by the supermarket. The refrigerator at home was empty, and he needed to restock the new lodger's food. After finishing his shopping, he drove up to his house late in the evening. He parked the car in the garage, flew up the stairs to his floor, and breathed a sigh of relief when he reached the door to his apartment. He was lucky not to run into his nosy neighbor, a sweet but overly talkative old woman. "It's better if she doesn't know I'm back early yet," Alex thought. He carefully placed the carrier on the floor in the hallway. The cat, although it continued to hiss, would occasionally fall silent, listening to the new sounds of the apartment. Between fear and curiosity, the animal still showed signs of interest in the surroundings. Alex quickly ate a snack, glanced at the carrier, but didn't dare to let the cat out. First, he removed all the fragile and heavy objects from the kitchen, prepared a bowl of water and some food. After that, he moved the carrier to the corner of the room, placed the bowls nearby, and as he left, muttered, "Go eat, I won't bother you." The man carefully closed the door behind him, leaving the cat alone. While the animal was settling into its new environment, Alex decided that he should first let it get used to and calm down, and then think about the bathroom. After a while, he peeked into the kitchen. The food was gone, and a quiet growl was coming from the carrier. Smiling, Alex closed the door and went to sleep. Fatigue after the business trip and his troubles was taking its toll. "Now I need just one thing, to get some sleep," he thought. However, while Alex was falling asleep, the cat was not. The kitchen door was ajar, and the animal, taking advantage of the moment, climbed out. Exploring the new space, the cat cautiously moved through the apartment, sniffing and looking around warily. Alex, who was fast asleep, didn't hear the sound of the wind outside or the quiet tapping of branches on the glass. But the cat, sensing something unusual, tensed up, its attention drawn to the strange sounds coming from the lock on the front door. What adventures awaited Alex next remained to be seen. But tonight he was about to discover a completely new neighbor in the form of a wild, but no longer so frightened, cat. He froze on the threshold of the room, hesitating to enter. Alex, breathing evenly and deeply, was sleeping peacefully in his bed. The cat, noticing this, deftly slipped under the chair that stood next to the bed and lay there quietly, as if holding its breath. Although the owner of the apartment was unaware, the animal could hear the quiet creak of the front door, the careful footsteps on the floor, and the whispered voices. "Are you sure no one's here? There are shoes by the door and a jacket hanging up. He's not supposed to be back for a couple days. Come on, let's grab anything valuable and get out of here. Just don't turn on the light. The neighbors might see." Two indistinct shadows moved cautiously down the hallway. One stopped at the threshold of the living room, allowing its eyes to adjust to the dim light from the street lamp that seeped into the room. The second headed straight into Alex's bedroom. When the intruder got closer and noticed the sleeping man, he was momentarily stunned. Taking a step closer to the chair, the stranger froze, considering his next move. But the cat, already in a state of extreme stress, didn't give him long to think. The animal was terrified. Unfamiliar things, strange smells. The cat had never been in a situation like this before. Seeing the approaching person, it arched its back, unsheathed its sharp claws, and, sensing danger, let out a deafening hiss that turned into a piercing wail. It was so unexpected in the night silence that even the cat itself flinched, but it didn't stop. On the contrary, it wailed even louder. Alex, hearing the deafening roar, jumped up in bed, not understanding what was happening. The intruder, who was standing nearby, recoiled sharply, got confused, and staggering back slammed his forehead against the doorframe. The dull thud was accompanied by a painful crack, and the man immediately slumped to the floor unconscious. The second intruder, hearing the noise, ran out into the hallway. Seeing his partner collapse to the floor, he rushed to the exit, burst out into the open door, and ran down the stairs as fast as he could. The cat was still not silent, and its cries became louder and louder. The animal couldn't calm down, shocked by the fleeting strangers. Alex, finally realizing the source of the noise, reached for the light switch. Turning on the light, he froze in shock. An unknown man was lying motionless on the floor. A crimson stain was spreading beneath his head. The cat was sitting nearby, growling and hissing. The man was momentarily taken aback, but hearing the slam of the front door, he grabbed a heavy desk lamp from the table and went out into the hallway. However, the apartment was empty. The entrance door slammed shut downstairs. Going to the window, Alex saw the second intruder jump into a car and drive away. Putting down the lamp, he hurried to grab the phone and call the police and an ambulance. Then he cautiously approached the man lying on the floor. Checking his pulse, Alex felt a faint heartbeat with relief. Turning the stranger over, he saw that his face was covered in blood. Not knowing how to help, Alex wrapped the intruder's hands in duct tape to protect himself in case he regained consciousness. The cat calmed down as soon as the owner left the room. The animal was hiding, but this didn't bother Alex. He was more concerned about the questions. Who were these people? And why had they broken into the apartment? The sirens blaring under the windows interrupted his thoughts. The man ran out to meet the police and medics, trying to explain the situation. How did it happen that you have a man in your apartment with a head injury and tied hands? The policeman's question was impassive. Alex tried to tell them about the cat, whose behavior had scared the thief, but his story was met with disbelief by the police. So you're saying that the cat brought him to this state? The officer asked skeptically. The medics took care of the victim, and the police began to inspect the apartment. Alex, however, was increasingly annoyed by the mistrust of his words. He could barely contain his emotions, realizing how unusual the situation looked. While some policemen were recording traces of blood on the doorframe, others were questioning a neighbor who had witnessed the nocturnal commotion. One of the uninvited guests dared to enter Alex's bedroom and, taking a fatal step, approached the bed. The cat, cowering in the farthest corner of the room, noticed the pair of strange shoes and hissed so loudly that the sound resembled a siren, and then burst into a wild, piercing wail that could have been mistaken for the cry of a true madman. From the unexpected noise, the whole apartment came to life. The tenants jumped as if sprung, and one of the policemen, who was interrogating Alex at that moment, immediately grabbed his gun holster, ready for any surprises. The cat's thunderous howl jolted the thief out of his deep stupor. The criminal, groaning sharply, opened his eyes and, meeting the gaze of the police, began to thrash around, howling right into the cushions of the sofa. Alex, watching this spectacle, remained almost unmoved, only smiled slyly and, raising his eyebrows, said restrainedly, "Well, do you still not believe me?" His voice sounded with a hint of amusement. The policeman, having solved the source of the noise, immediately looked under the bed. The beams of the flashlights illuminated the culprit, the malicious cat, who, deciding that he was being attacked, immediately rushed at his offenders. One of the policemen, showing an immediate reaction, managed to avoid meeting the sharp claws. Otherwise, the matter could have ended in serious injuries. The complicated operation to shove the cat into the carrier turned into a real show. Everyone present participated in this mission, like a well-coordinated team of rescuers. Alex, exhausted after such a performance, asked hopefully once again, "Is it definitely not rabid?" The policeman reassured him, assuring him that they would send the animal to the vet for tests and report the results. After the cat finished his unscheduled demonstration, there was no doubt left. It became perfectly clear how the thief had broken his head. This incident explained many details. No one asked any more questions about the duct tape on Alex's hands. The proceedings related to the incident continued almost all night. When the thief realized that escape was impossible, he immediately began to cooperate. He gave the name of the accomplice who had managed to escape and described the details in detail. Another squad was immediately called to arrest the accomplice. To Alex's surprise, it soon turned out that the main informant was the very neighbor whose visits he feared the most. The elderly woman, whom he trusted, turned out to be cunning and calculating. Using her sociability and assertiveness, she easily found out the necessary information from the tenants. Thus, Alex, deciding to get rid of her endless visits, reported that he was going on a business trip. Without wasting time, the neighbor passed this information on to her accomplices. After this incident, the whole house lively discussed the criminal inclinations of the pensioner, suspecting her of collaborating with the thieves. Alex himself, ignoring the conversations of the neighbors, was busy solving pressing problems. First, he waited for the arrival of a master to install a new lock, and then spent the whole day running around the city in search of a veterinarian who would dare to examine the cat. The beast turned out to be extremely unfriendly. As soon as he hissed and waved his paw, the doctors immediately abandoned attempts to approach. Only one veterinarian, armed with a special glove with a thick plastic lining, was able to take a blood sample from the animal for analysis. Fortunately, the cat was not found to have rabies. Returning home, Alex put the carrier on the floor, opened the door, and offered the cat a bowl of food. Looking at the beast with a soft smile, he said, "You know, I've changed my mind. I won't look for you a new home. You'll stay and live with me. I'll call you Tiger. We'll make friends and you'll become a real house cat." The cat looked at him suspiciously, but surprisingly did not hiss. This was a great start to a new strong friendship.